Hello friends and welcome to this video. Today we are going to be talking all about jealousy in romantic relationships. This is something I am all too familiar with myself. I've really been on a journey with this theme from, I would say, my late teens to my now, to my late 20s. What I hope this video achieves is sharing my own story and insights, my updated insights, and making you feel like you're okay even though you struggle with this theme, okay? Because I know how tricky and layered navigating this feeling can be. So hopefully we can navigate that a little bit together today, and I will do my best to share my story and then my tangible tips and tricks at the end of the video. So to start from the beginning, I was at a young age quite jealous and reactive in my romantic relationships. And look, I think these things are more normal to a certain extent when you are younger, when you're a teenager, hormones are flying, you're figuring it all out. But I would have been sad to hold on to those traits and cycles of drama. I do sometimes feel sad that I spent part of my youth, part of my romantic youth, which could have been different, could have been more free and flowy, but that I did spend it in insecurity and jealousy. But yeah, essentially I would just always worry. I would check up on like what could be checked up on, you know, on social media, following lists, likes. Back in the day, I mean, this was a bit diabolical, but in the feed where you could see like what everyone else had liked, that kind of stuff. I would also feel like threatened by other attractive women's presence, especially if those women had traits that I were insecure about myself. When I was younger, I was very insecure about my small boobs. That's another journey and talk. I love them now, but anyway, that was a big insecurity of mine. And so if someone had that specific trait, I would feel like I wasn't enough, or if my partner was interacting with someone that had that specific trait, which I'm trying not to laugh right now because I'm trying to give my younger self grace, but I have really been on a journey with this, so it feels almost quite far removed from my current self now. But I know and I remember that feeling all too well. And it stressed me out, like from a romantic perspective, really stressful, and also from a personal perspective, because I am also someone who loves women. I root for women. I consider myself a girl's girl and always have. So having this insecurity and reactiveness and jealousness that didn't feel like it aligned with the rest of my personality. I think, you know, growing up in a society where women are often pitted against each other, seeing toxic norms or the way young boys or men would sometimes objectify women, talk about women, praise women for certain things and not for other things. It all sort of created this perfect storm that I'm sure most of us who've grown up in society under patriarchy are familiar with. Where you internalize these things. And for me, like a big part of my insecurity also came from like I was obsessed with having male validation when I was younger. It was very important to me if men found me attractive, and I feel like that almost ties into this whole obsession with jealousy, right? Because part of it was also happening inside of me, this obsession with appearance and attractiveness and hotness, alongside with a, I suppose, deep-seated fear of betrayal. Like I am quite a loyal person. I'm a Leo, so, you know, I can also be a little bit possessive. That hasn't entirely gone away, but that was like left unchecked with the jealousy, right? Like there's a difference between being loyal and a little bit like, this is mine, and letting it run, control, or ruin your life and relationship. So yeah, I was super reactive. I was super like, I want to say addicted to the pattern, because the thing is, when you're in this and when you're used to this, you will always be looking for more. Like once one jealous or insecure thought is tamed, or you raise it, or you have a fight about it or whatever, another one will appear. It is a cycle, it is a pattern. And look, I've always had a knack for finding partners who were the life of the party. So I would also like put myself in situations or be attracted to people that would like inevitably trigger that dynamic and where I got to live out that role. And it's very interesting because sometimes I will feel it come up in my current relationship where from the get-go, I've sort of been able to vet and check that our boundaries and values were aligned. So there really isn't anything here, but sometimes, like, for whatever reason, I will feel this old pattern rearing inside of me and like a desire to almost find something wrong so that I can play out that narrative one more time. And I really have to stop myself because it's so familiar to me and it has nothing to do with my current reality. And, you know, back then it felt real, and some of the stuff, I'm not going to get into details about my previous personal life, but some stuff probably was like founded a little bit in some things in reality, but most of it was just fabricated and made up rules. And it was like the more jealous I was, the more rules I wanted to impose on my partner, the more rules I also imposed on myself, right? Because like, oh, well, if I'm unhappy with my partner for doing all these things or engaging in this or whatever, then I can't do that either. Because to play the jealous role, to not become a hypocrite, you also have to live up to that standard, right? And like that I made myself terrified of also stepping out of line or doing something that in my weird, jealous, moral rule book could deem wrong, that it just put all this pressure and restriction on myself. So yeah, just a reminder to anyone who is experiencing this right now and acting out this pattern. I know you're probably doing it from like, you think it keeps you safe or you wouldn't do it. You think that some part of it is protecting you, it's scanning for threats, it's keeping you and the relationship safe. But the fact is, if most of this isn't really founded in reality or any real boundary crossings, we'll get to boundaries and insecurities later, by the way. I will get into how to sort of tell what's what later, like what's a boundary and what's an insecurity. But when we're not really dealing with anything in the real world, it is not protecting your relationship. It is damaging it, it is wasting your time, and it is draining your energy. And I know you probably know this on some level, so please don't beat yourself up if you're having this pattern. I think the first step is awareness, and when we can bring in awareness with self-love, with self-compassion, that's when we can really find the space to actually change and to change out of love now. And to change out of love because we deserve to be freer and live life more carefree, and so does our partner, right? But my point is, you would not be having this pattern if you didn't think it benefited you somehow. So like, if you want to get more clear on this, a question you could maybe ask yourself is, what do I gain from this? What feeling is it giving me? Most likely, if I were to guess, like, it's always individual to you guys, right? But like, is it giving you this feeling of control, which by the way isn't real, but it can still give you that, right? You feel like, oh, now I've checked this, or I've talked to him about this, or I've made sure this and that. It gives the illusion of control. It doesn't give you any actual control. But is that what you're gaining? Is it a thing where you have a big fight and then you have to make up and then you get like extra attention or something like this? Like, what are you gaining from this pattern? Because we don't do anything unless some part of us believes that there's something to be gained from it. The thing is, there's not. And especially if it's the control thing, there is absolutely nothing you can do to control another human being's actions. There is only things you can do to control your own and control who you choose to be with. So yeah, eventually I grew tired of feeling unstable, tired of being so reactive and having like my mood depend on all these many weird rules and scanning for outside threats all the time. I'd say my real change probably started the same time as my spiritual journey started. I've always been on a personal development path. I've been into that stuff since I was like 15, but it wasn't until I added like the meditation and mindfulness aspect that things really changed for me, because that is what taught me how to hold my own emotions rather than reacting to them and believing them. Like, taking all of my many emotions as truth every moment was exhausting. Like, I had to learn how to sit with myself, how to regulate myself, how to not be so reactive. And I had done therapy for many years, so like I had some self-awareness. Like, obviously I've gained more over time, but getting into the body, out of my mind, finding peace, holding emotions was very, very key to me in healing this and healing many other things, because I was letting my emotions run my life, determine my relationship, cause drama in my relationship and my life, exhaust me, stress me out. And then something interesting happened, and that's why I'm very wary of my framing and why it's really important for me to come at this video with self-love for those of you who relate is because because I became so self-aware and learned to sit with it, I became quite shameful of having engaged so much in that harmful behavior. I would say I was pretty hard on myself, and I really wanted to distance myself from that because I realized obviously that it was not productive. Like ultimately now I can have compassion and I can understand, no, that was not productive, that was not good, but I was doing the best that I could with the resources available to me at the time. And most 18-year-olds from my generation at least don't have a great toolbox for like regulating their own emotions and understanding their feelings. What happened was I almost let this pendulum swing too far for a little while because I was so hell-bent on not being jealous, on not being insecure, on not being reactive, that I then became more passive. So I just want to mention that because that is something to watch out for, and that, you know, there's many things I wish I could tell my younger selves, but that's definitely one of them, is like, hey, just because you have this new awareness and there's this pattern that you want to change, it's still okay to have boundaries. Insecurities and boundaries are not the same, but I think I got it a little bit conflated because I felt like anything that I raised in relationship that would cause a conversation or a conflict was equal something related to jealousy, when that isn't actually the case. So let's get into it. Insecurities versus boundaries. To me, in general, this is a generalization, but an insecurity would be something that awakens and activates something within me without my partner actively having done anything, or like without anything actually happen. Whereas a boundary is something that impacts the relationship, has some sort of effect on me, or like causes me to feel disrespected. So just to try and give an example, because it might feel a little bit untangible when I say it just like this. An insecurity would be, let's say we're at a function and my partner is interacting with an attractive woman. Maybe this is a woman who carries certain traits that I'm jealous of or insecure of, or even the fact that she's just there, like interacting normally, or the presence of another person. If you have a reaction to that and there's nothing other than that going on, that's probably an insecurity, right? Because just other people existing, or other people that your partner might find attractive existing, should not be a threat to your relationship. Like, we all have eyes, we can all see when someone is attractive, right? That does not mean we're gonna act on that. If we are in a loving, monogamous, committed relationship, like how I know for myself, like all of my celebrity crushes could walk in right now, but I would still always choose my partner. Like, it's not about attractiveness or status or anything like that, whether or not you would cheat on someone. It's whether or not you were okay to cheat on your partner or not. An insecurity is something where it's just the mere presence of someone or something, or the opportunity for someone or something. Also, because even with like, because you know, my current partner is quite an attractive guy, so women will sometimes approach him. Men too, actually. People will sometimes approach him, and I can't blame them for that. But it's ultimately that thing of like, if that bothers me, those people, they don't know that he's taken, they're just shooting their shot because he's hot, right? So they're allowed to do that. But if that like endlessly triggers me, similarly to if a guy approaches me, like, that's not any disrespect to my relationship on my behalf. That's just people shooting their shot in this life. So insecurity is things that happen that aren't inside the relationship, that are just other people's presence, the potential for something, or like other people coming from the outside, which we also can't control. A boundary, however, is something that your partner does that oversteps your definition of commitment, of monogamy, and of respect within a relationship. And those are all different for everyone. So obviously in most monogamous couples, it is agreed upon that you, for example, you don't have sex with other people. But what the tolerance for flirting is might look different. What your stance on social media interactions are might look very different. And for example, for me, I no longer consider myself particularly jealous, but I am still very serious about the relationship I'm in. I'm very committed and I would say respectful myself. So I expect my partner to live up to the same. Like, I would not be happy with the partner being overtly flirty or following attractive strangers on Instagram for no reason. Like, all of that does not fly with me. It does not make me feel good. It does not make me feel valued and respected and committed to. So those are no-goes for me. Other people might not care at all, and that's fine. I'm not saying that my particular boundaries are the correct ones. It's just taken me a while to find out what was what, because they can taste a little bit the same, right? Like insecurities and boundaries. But all these boundaries or these things that would bother me are something that my partner would actively have to participate in. And it's very important to honor your own boundaries, okay? Those are valid. And once you also know what's what, it makes it a lot easier for you to stand firm on your boundaries, because you know that it's not just your insecurity or your reactiveness rearing its head. You know in your heart, like, no, this is how I feel about relationship. This is what I need to feel secure and loved. Then the person you're with either matches that or they don't. And what you do with that information is then up to you, because then it's like, you know, boundaries are only boundaries if they have a consequence. Otherwise, they're just suggestions. And this is what I experienced. So in the past, in a past relationship, I had this experience of, because I wanted to repent for my jealousy, I ended up ignoring some boundaries. And then I was left with all this resentment towards myself for not enforcing my own boundaries and respecting them, because I kind of just lumped them together with insecurities. So the crux of this video, and really like a point I've been thinking about for a long time, and also discussing with friends, and it's just been coming up for me in different aspects, is this insecurities and boundaries thing. Also, that insecurities are okay. Like, you shouldn't let your insecurities run your life. But in a loving relationship, you should be able to voice if you have an insecurity and share these things, because a loving partner would want to help you with that. It's just how you come at it that makes the whole difference. So in coaching, I have a coaching certification. We talk a lot about preframing, which is a term, I suppose, used to like set the scene for something. And I think preframing is great. I love to preframe the hell out of everything. I preframed you all on this video, right? And I love when people preframe for me, because I'm someone who will always be like wondering, like, what's going next? I need to feel safe and secure in my preframing. Give me a frame, please. And I think this is a great tool to bring into relationship too, because obviously the conversation I would be having with someone if they crossed my literal boundaries would be very different to say if I just had an insecurity come up. Like, as I mentioned earlier, like if I have this old pattern or fear rearing its head, or something pops up that triggers something from the past, I should be allowed to voice that. I just say what it is. I don't come at my partner as if they've done something wrong. I'm just saying, hey babe, I'm experiencing this feeling. Can we talk through it? I just need a little bit of reassurance. I would love to share this with you. And that is very different than coming at them all angry because you have a negative emotion, right? Which is, for me, what was happening when I was younger and jealous and reactive. Because they would be the trigger, I would like give them the blame it or loop it in as something wrong in the relationship, when actually it was something wrong in my reaction to things that were just happening by proxy as of life in a world where other people exist. So to summarize, my first tip is understanding insecurities versus boundaries, doing some work on that, doing some introspection, maybe some journaling, maybe like if you do have this jealousy theme and it's really running your life, I would suggest getting like a therapist or someone to talk to help you facilitate those emotions for you specifically, because that will always help you gain self-awareness. Like, I mentioned mostly my spiritual journey in this video, but that's only because I'd already laid the foundation with my therapy. So understanding insecurities and boundaries, and then when a situation arises, preframing what you're talking about. to your partner. So don't let the pendulum swing so much that you're not allowed to be human and have an insecurity that you want to discuss with your partner. Just don't make it into a big jealous drama when it's actually an insecurity that it is your responsibility to deal with it, but there should still be a loving space, a loving container where you're allowed to be human and have insecurities in your relationship. My second tangible tip is all about self-love. The more you work on and love on yourself, the more you will be able to be discerning and back yourself and back those real boundaries and act accordingly. And be honest with yourself about what is working and what is not, what you're willing to put up with and what you're not. Also, because the more self-love you have, the more you will be able to regulate yourself and not, again, as I said, I believe there should be space in the relationship to help each other regulate. But the more you can do it for yourself, the less drama you will also inevitably cause in your own life and your own relationship. So if you can learn to sit with your emotions, if you can learn to meditate, to do tapping, to do something that gets you out of your head and into your body and helps you make peace with those thoughts instead of letting those thoughts run the whole show, then that will be a very important step on the way to breaking the cycle. Try like something you would probably immediately jump on. Try just leaving it and say to yourself, you know, I can bring this up in a day if it's still bothering me. Sometimes if we just learn to let more things go, that can also be sort of a handy trick to easing out of a pattern and just, yeah, not engaging with every thought, not believing every jealous thought. And I do want to make it clear here that I don't want us to bypass anything, because I also believe, especially women's intuition is strong. So I'm not saying to suppress yourself or anything like that. But if there's something you're pretty certain is just part of this jealous pattern, try just not picking up the phone next time that thought calls. And it will probably keep calling, but if you can just practice little bit by little bit, that is a great step in the direction alongside with doing these other things. These thoughts, they can come with such urgency. And I think that urgency stems from us knowing that we can't regulate ourselves until it's solved or it's been talked out or shouted out or whatever. And if you can practice just holding it for a little bit by yourself, sitting with it, maybe getting some perspective, then that will help you break the cycle of it feeling so urgent, because the urgency adds to the drama. And it also buys you time to investigate, is this an insecurity or is it an actual boundary? To that, I also want to say that you are not broken for being jealous or insecure. It might be something you want to change because it's not allowing you to live your best life. It's not allowing you to be the best partner. And ultimately, it is not loving to yourself or others. So certainly you should want to change it. And I just believe so strongly that self-love as a foundation will help melt it a lot easier than coming at it harsh and like there's something wrong with you and like you're broken, because it's already stressful enough feeling insecure and jealous. Like, you don't need shame and self-hatred on top of that. And you deserve to live a life where you're not constantly feeling like you have to control something, control someone else. And that leads me to my final point, which I've already sort of peppered in here, but I'm going to make it very clear that at the end of the day, so this is like the good news and the bad news, at the end of the day, there is absolutely nothing you can do to control your partner's actions, okay? If someone wants to cheat, they will cheat. It does not matter what time they get home, who they follow on or don't follow on Instagram, how many other attractive women or men there are. None of that matters. You cannot control your way out of it. The only thing you can control is you, how you respond to things, how you are in your current relationship, what kind of partner you are, and how you react to setting your boundaries and who you choose to be with. Those are the things you can control. So pick someone who aligns with your values, has the similar boundaries, is happy to work within that frame and make you feel respected and safe and loved. Find someone like that, or communicate clearly with the partner that you have. You know, sometimes we can be with someone and then we gain this new awareness, so we kind of need to take them on the journey so they don't feel out of the loop all of a sudden. That could definitely also be the case. So yeah, you cannot control it either way. this jealousy, this checking is an absolute illusion. Intuition is very real, but insecurity will often try and disguise itself as intuition. So you have to be discerning. And I personally like to always try and find this trust in like the universe. I always am like, if there's something I need to know, I will know eventually. This thinking that I need to check up on my partner and make sure they're not cheating or doing this and that. I just like to have, obviously I love and trust my partner, I have faith in them or I would not be with them. But also having faith in what I'm meant to know, I will always eventually know. One of my favorite mantras is I am responsible for myself and everyone else is responsible for themselves. And that really sets you free. It also ties into the control thing, right? Because I can only control myself. I can't control the others. They can control them. So radical responsibility for my insecurities. I own that. I take my communication. I take my insecurities. I understand my boundaries. That's all on me. How someone acts if they decide to betray me or disrespect me, that is on them. And that's how self-love also ties into it, because I used to be so afraid of that happening because I was afraid of it meaning something negative about me not being good enough, because I already felt like I wasn't good enough. And now that I do feel good enough, I know that if someone did do that, they would be the ones who screwed up. Obviously, I would have to deal with the betrayal and the grief and all of that, and which, you know, I'd prefer not to. But because my perception of myself and my own worth shifted so much, so did the fear. Because I'm also not afraid of finding out and being alone. Because it is that thing where, oh, I know now, like if someone crossed these boundaries, I would have to leave and that would be sad. But it would be no less sad than being with someone who didn't respect my boundaries. Okay guys, I am going to wrap it up because I feel like I've been talking for a long time, but I hope that this resonated, maybe gave some input on how to navigate these feelings, and I hope it made you feel like you're okay even if you're going through this, and that it can change. It's changed so much for me. Like obviously I'm familiar with it because I'm reminiscing on it, but I genuinely feel like I'm talking about my little sister or like another life. Sometimes old patterns rear their head, but it is so minimal. Let me be living proof that it can change, and let me just assure you that nothing is wrong with you and that you're not broken, but that the most important thing you can do is take responsibility and do so lovingly. Yeah, just thanks for being here and for giving me space to talk about these things, and yeah, I hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye!